Hey folks, Tripp Watson here, driving back to Birmingham from Nashville. We just wrapped up the weekend and the 2 days of ClioCon up in Nashville. This is the 2022 edition, the very first time that they've hosted ClioCon in person since the pandemic. So, want to give you all some thoughts, the good, the bad, and some kind of commentary about what my experience has been this year. Now, I will preface this by saying I've only been to one other ClioCon, and I just couldn't get interested in doing the remote, virtual-only ClioCons during the pandemic. Especially the idea of paying money to watch what I was sure to be training videos, just never made any sense to me. And I get that there are people that like watching a lot of the video feeds and a lot of the keynotes, but the value for me has always been showing up at these conferences because, and I will say, we'll start with the good. The best thing that this conference does is networking. Some of the very coolest people with some of the coolest ideas are around, and being able to rub elbows with attorneys that do fascinating things in interesting ways, and how they leverage technology, because it is a technology conference, is fascinating to me. It makes me really excited about what the legal field can do to see that and be able to network and rub elbows with those folks. And there's a lot of opportunities at ClioCon for that. Jokingly, I've spoken to a few folks in the past that pretty shamelessly go to ClioCon and don't even get a ticket, but they will just hang out in kind of the periphery areas and not actually go into any of the sessions for the sole purpose of just seeing people and being seen and whatnot. Now, I got tickets. I actually went to and paid money for it, so I'm not one of those folks, but I'm just saying that there is a constituency that does that. So the next big thing is for Clio content, it's generally really good. One of the things I love about it is there's always a flurry in the weeks before and sometimes in the weeks after of releasing new features, and being able to see them rolled out at ClioCon and be announced is really interesting, because you can start getting an idea. And that's the other big thing that I like about these types of conferences, is it gets you away from your practice so that you can look from a top-down area and be like, hey, how can I implement some of these technological changes in our practice, leverage that in order to make us do what we do better, and figuring out how we do that using the tools that Clio has. And so there were several announcements, some improvements that were going to be made to billing, client communications. Clio is continuing to build on the client portal, which is not something I've leaned into, but based on what I've seen this week, this was a feature set that was announced a year or two ago, basically a rebranded client portal app, so that it was a client-facing app. I don't know that clients are going to use this. I was curious to see how other people had used it, and it sounds like there have been a lot of clients that have been happily using it in the intervening time. I was not an early adopter of this. I could never really get anybody to use the Clio portal when it first launched anyway, and so that I kind of bounced off of it, but it was good to hear some other attorneys that did that. So part of what I'm going to be doing when I get back is going to be rolling out some intake, and part of our new client packets will include some information about the app and trying to encourage communications to come through the portal, because I'm like most attorneys, I'm trying to get stuff out of email. I get hundreds of emails every day, and a client email can often go overlooked and not acted on, and sometimes an email is just too much for a quick question. The other issue that we constantly have, and something that came up during ClioCon, is document management. Clio has invested heavily in getting Clio documents built out and making that a robust system. It's not something we switched over to entirely. We still use OneDrive, and I like that because of its sharing capabilities and the ability to work real time on documents with other users in our firm and even with our clients. So for instance, filling out interrogatories in real time and letting a client be able to see what I'm writing, that's really fun to be able to do. Now, I will say one issue that we've always run into is getting documents from clients in electronic format. I would still say 70% of our clients email us documents. No matter how hard we try to get them to upload stuff through a client, a Dropbox, call it a Dropbox, that's not a big D, not the company Dropbox, but just a folder that we've designated with full rights where they can deposit the files into that. I know that Clio's made investments in that. And so, let's talk a little bit. Another thing that I like about ClioCon is, and I don't go to enough of these sessions, but it's really folks that are pushing the envelope as far as what law practices can do and hearing what they do and how they do it and how they leverage it. I almost want to know, and it's a little bit of the format, it's a little bit of just, time limitations and things like that. But I would almost like to see some more tactical on the ground, like this is how we integrate this one particular app and be able to roll that out to our practice in a much more practical and pragmatic way, rather than a high-level conceptual. Here's some of the reminder emails that we send. We found that sending invoice reminders on 15 days was more effective than on 20 days. Little tactical things like that would be super beneficial for me, and I've not seen that come out as much this year as it did in 2019, the last time that I went, and what I would really like. So let's talk about some of the bad. For better or for worse, it's ClioCon. So Clio is really, really good with pushing the message and getting out there about their feature set. And this has been a little bit of my criticisms. For those of you that know, I love the Legal Trends Report, but it's limited in what I think it can do because it's become increasingly just a marketing tool. And I know that this is kind of a give and take where it's like, yeah, we get feedback based upon surveys, and so we build features to build that, and so then we use the surveys to justify the feature set and to advertise the feature set. I know there's that synergy that pops in, and it's frustrating, but yeah, I get it. But this year, 2022, for me, was very salesy. I felt like I was getting the full pitch that Clio is a fantastic product without any flaws, and yeah, we could improve it and we will continue to improve it, but we don't need to because it's perfect in its current iteration. And it's just not. I like Clio. I've been a long-time user of Clio. It's a fantastic product. It's a great app for what it does. But is it the greatest thing since sliced bread? No. Are there features that could be improved? Absolutely. Do I think that Clio's working really hard on getting solutions to those problems? Not necessarily. For instance, one of the big things that they featured and they rolled out that I was really interested in was an integration with Legal Boards. So Legal Boards is a Kanban-style task management so that you can show where certain tasks are as far as in progress, completed, under review, that type of stuff. I'm not very familiar with it, but the concept of Kanban board is pretty universal. This weekend, or I should say on Monday, Clio announced that they are doing a deep native integration with Legal Boards so that when you pull up a matter in Clio, you'll be able to see your Legal Boards in real time. And while I think that this is great, Clio is an app that I pay $80 a month per used seat for, or more. I think I pay less because I'm actually grandfathered in under an older package. But realistically, this is a very expensive product, and it is a product that I need. It's a hub for a lot of our practice, but it's got a task management system in it already. It should be doing that kind of stuff natively, And so for the solution to be, yeah, we know that we have this really expensive product that we are continuously going up on prices on an almost, semi-annual basis or biannual basis, but we're not making significant improvements in some of the base feature sets, such as tasks, which is the big one for me, calendaring and things like that, and then in choosing to outsource it so that there has to be yet another product that I pay for is very frustrating to me. I like legal boards. I like the idea of introducing a Kanban style system integration into Clio, but I feel like that should be native. I feel like I'm already kind of paying for that, and I feel like there's some basic feature sets that should be added that have been kind of on the wait list for a long period of time. Meanwhile, Clio's rolled out Clio Payments, which is a service that nobody really asked for, and in the process got LawPay pissed off at them, so that now LawPay has acquired my case in a defensive acquisition. So, that's been one thing, is the sales portion of Clio has gotten very heavy, and it's very, this leads into my second issue with kind of the bad, is that I would say that there's kind of a recognition that, yes, while we're rolling out new apps and new integrations, there's also not a recognition of proper implementation of existing feature sets. So, for instance, one of the big things that they did, and I didn't like the format at all, they had in the vendor area some kind of like quick, like how to use the QuickBooks integration and how to use advanced task features and how to do task lists and things like that. But it was very much in a public area of the vendor area in the convention center. There's not a lot of seats. It was very loud, and the sessions themselves were very short, like 10 to 15 minutes, which is fine to get some like surface level knowledge about what some of these integrations do, but it didn't really give you practical application. It was somebody from Clio telling you how this can be used. And what I really want, and Clio did this back in 2019, and it was less of it on this one, was to get actually practicing attorneys up there to say, hey, so we're kind of power users of task lists, and we're a family law practice, and so we have a task list for this, and they're supposed to load up these specific things to do, and really a more clear roadmap of practical implementation versus having kind of a high level where here's the task and you figure out what to do with it. And I want some more real world use case to see how other folks have built this out, because one of the benefits and one of the drawbacks of Clio is that it is in many ways a blank slate. It's got some customization that can be done to it, especially in regards to third-party app integrations. But with that blank slate, there's not a lot of templates. There's not a lot of like, here's what we use for like custom fields and things like that in our practice. Here's how we leverage task lists. There's that from a high-level conceptual standpoint, but not the pragmatic implementation. So I would have loved, for instance, to see somebody else that like me, does business formations and structuring, that's like, yeah, hey, so maybe even it's a deep dive of like, family law session of here's how we can use Clio for family law. But I would have loved for somebody that does business work to say, yeah, we do this. This is the type of work that we do. These are the task lists that we use, and we found that it works well to delegate these tasks in this specific manner. That would have been really beneficial to me, and I would have liked to see that. But instead, you get the high-level conceptual and not the tactical. My last big complaint about ClioCon this year, and this I felt was significantly more than in years past, and I'm not going to say it was exclusively, because there were a couple of sessions that I went to where the speakers were really good. They were given a softball, basically, and they did not hit it out of the park like they could have. and they were really good about saying, hey, you know, I provide this service, but I don't want to be salesy. I appreciated that. But a lot of these sessions are couched as being informational when they are, in fact, sales pitches, which is jarring because there are, in fact, explicit sales pitches in the program. And I'm fine. I'm okay going to a sales pitch. Sometimes I want to get sold. If I've got a problem, I'm happy to pay somebody some money to solve a problem that I need fixed. So I'm not opposed to a sales pitch on something that I'm interested in or looking for. But when you couch something as being like, you know, here's how to help with billing, or here's how to help with something, and it's really just a venue for you to be able to pitch the software package that you've developed, that's really frustrating to me. And so it happened a lot. I just realized that my camera has fallen down, so I don't know how much of that y'all missed, but you know, that was a big frustration for me, because a lot of the sessions were really sales pitches, and they were couched as being informational, and there was like 5 minutes of informational stuff at the beginning of a half hour to an hour long informational program, when in reality it was somebody that was loading up a white paper that they had done that justified the existence of their software app, and now I'm going to spend the remaining time talking about the feature set of our app. And realistically, I would have benefited a lot more from having practicing attorneys up there and talking about specific things that they did. So, for instance, one of the ones that I really love, and I'm a sucker for personality tests, Myers-Briggs, and things like that. I've done DISC assessments and what have you. I like those. I use those a bunch. I use them in my practice. I probably could use them more often than I do. But there was somebody that did a presentation on that, and they did a very good job. It was not salesy at all. I think she does that type of work, but she did not pitch it as a salesy thing. So they were like, yeah, here's what we do. Here's a great way to kind of distill these personality traits into a color scheme. And so we know that color scheme, and be able, they even said that they put it in their email signatures so that when you're talking to somebody that was an orange, then you knew, like, that's their kind of personality set. I loved that session because it was not salesy. It was actually informative. It was interactive. It was really good. But there were a lot of sessions that were couched as being informational when they were really just product sales pitches. So that was kind of the big thing that really kind of changed me, is that the overall theme of ClioCon was a whole lot of sales. And that's fine. Like, you're going to get that in a convention. It's going to bleed through a lot of times, but I feel like the weighting on this was much more salesy than it has been in the past, and what I think that it should be, just because, like, there are, I mean, you know, here's the thing. Clio's clearly not a perfect product, or else there would be no room for product features, and there's gaps. And so what I would love is for somebody to say, hey, listen, you know, we recognize that Clio's not a perfect app, that there's some feature sets that we would love to release, but hey, feature sets cost money and time to develop. It's difficult to do them, and sometimes they don't work the way that they're supposed to. But to get somebody up there and say, hey, listen, I'm an actual attorney. You know, we love Clio. We love using the program, but it's not perfect. So here's some workarounds that we use. Like, the task system isn't great for this. This is a gap, but until they fix this particular deal, here's how we figured out a way to do it. And so, for instance, like, I was, you know, the reason why networking is such a big deal at these conventions is because knowing that, you know, how other attorneys do these types of things is super important. And that was an attorney that I was talking to. She was like, yeah, you know, it's very important that we use task lists. We need to know where things are in the process. And so, you know, she was like, part of our, and you'll have to forgive me, my camera's going insane. But that was like one of the things that they did that I loved, was she was like, yeah, here's our process that we use. We have 9 task lists. And the first one's kind of a generic one for every single matter that comes into our firm. And I was like, okay, that makes sense. She said, then at the end of it, there's an assessment. and then you check that off, and then you select which one of the next task lists to follow. And I was like, that's brilliant. So, you know, you don't automatically have to make a different task list for everything, but you can have branching decision trees. And I thought that that was a really good implementation of the task list, recognizing an issue that it has, which in my opinion, the two biggest issues that the task list in Clio, the task features have, is they're very limited in their conditional nature. So I can set a time period behind one task to the next. But what I would love, for instance, is if I set a task to be complete, another task gets assigned to somebody else. It never shows up until mine is complete. So, for instance, there's no reason for me to review discovery if somebody else has not checked it off that we've received discovery responses in a matter. I shouldn't even be looking at the discovery until, you know, we've confirmed that we've received it. And that's a feature that they just don't have right now. So anyway, overall, still love the conference. I really don't have a lot of legal conferences to compare it to. There's some Alabama conferences that I've been to that are good, largely geared towards CLE and like informational download, but there's obviously a lot of networking that comes into it. Clio still is and probably will remain my favorite tech conference. It's a lot of good information. The frustration that I have is that, as I mentioned, it's more and more kind of pushing the Clio narrative, and I'm hoping that they kind of claw that back, because I heard that that was a routine complaint for a lot of folks. And so I'm hoping that they realize that needs to be toned down a little bit. But I would love to see more practical applications of things, because at the end of the day, like I said, Clio is probably the best conference because of some of the truly innovative thinkers that come through Clio Convention. And so if you don't have the right format that encourages those folks to come, then you lose out on that biggest benefit, the thing that I liked first, that I still think that Clio does best, which is that networking. And so, you know, figuring out ways to maximize that and not discourage folks. You know, I love you, Jack, but we need to finish the keynotes and the spotlights in a timely manner, because that was one of the issues, is that there was an early networking event that a lot of people wanted to attend, but the opening keynote ran so long that a lot of people missed that. So anyway, those are kind of my thoughts, and I know that my camera's been going nuts. I'm driving back, and I'm just going to leave it like that for a minute. But, you know, I'm curious. Let me know your thoughts, what you thought if you went to Clio, if there's a reason you haven't gone to Clio in the past. I'd love to know why you stopped going, why you've not gone before. I also want to know about your experience. If you went this year, were there things that you liked that or didn't like that I missed, or that you disagreed with me on, that you felt like, hey, I don't think it was salesy at all? I'd love to hear it. So obviously, leave me a comment. Let me know. I'd be fascinated to know what you think. So y'all have a good one, and I will see y'all next time.